Is it vanity that I should take a great pleasure in being hailed as the grand old man of India? No, that title, which speaks volumes for the warm, grateful, and generous hearts of my countrymen, is to me, whether I deserve it or not, the highest reward of my life. Not many years ago, there lay 7 islands where the city of Bombay has now sprung up, forming the main gateway between the East and the West. Several communities migrated to Bombay and brought prosperity to this city. Parsis were one of them. In a Parsi priest's family, a child was born on the 4th of September 1825 in Bombay. The parents named their first and only child Dada Bhai. He was destined to become Dada, the grand old man of India. Unfortunately, the child lost his father, Naoroji Palanji Dori, when he was only 4 years old. His gifted mother, Manik Bai, however, supplied to a large extent the want of her father's care and protection. In a tribute to his mother, Dada Bhai said, "She helped with all her heart in my work for female education and other social reforms against the prejudices of the day. She made me what I am." Though he did not become a Parsi priest like his father, he was highly influenced by the doctrines of Zoroastrianism. A Gujarati treatise, The Duties of Zoroastrianism, was his constant companion, from which he derived pure thought, pure speech, and pure deed. He was a bright student at the prestigious Elphinstone Institute, a college named after Mount Stuart Elphinstone, the governor of Bombay, a pioneer of education in India. Professor Olebar of the Elphinstone Institute called him the promise of India. Dada Bhai had several firsts to his credit. He became the first Indian professor in an institution of Western education, the first to found several organizations for the social, intellectual, and political upliftment of the people of India, the first Indian Member of Parliament in England, the first to sit on a royal commission, and the first and foremost Indian to claim self-government for his countrymen. His most distinguished pupil, Ramkrishna Bhandarkar, one of the greatest Orientalists in India, used to say that it was impossible to forget Dada Bhai's masterly teaching and kindness to his students. He was a great supporter of free education, and believed that every child, rich or poor, should have the opportunity of receiving all the education it is capable of assimilating. In the Students' Literacy and Scientific Society, a paper on female education was read by Behramji Gandhi on the 4th of August, 1884. It led to a discussion, which took a practical turn. Dada Bhai and his friends went from house to house, persuading parents and guardians to allow them to teach the 3 R's to their girls, as girls at that time were not sent to schools, and female education was practically nil. As pioneers of reform are invariably handicapped for want of an organ to expound their views, Kharshedji Kama, with his funds, helped Dada Bhai to start a reformist journal in November 1851. It was called Rast Guftar, or the Truth Teller in Gujarati. It was launched under Dada Bhai's editorship. Within a few months, it became an influential organ of advanced opinion. Dada Bhai's link with the paper continued even after he left India in 1855. A syndicate was formed to run the paper. It consisted of Dada Bhai, Kharsheji N. Kama, P.R. Kola, K.R. Kama, D.F. Kama, Naoroji Fardunji, Sorabji Bengali, and Karsandas Mulji. In 1855, Dada Bhai left the shores of India and sailed to England to join the commercial firm started by the Kamas, who required the cooperation of a partner of high ability and integrity. Dada Bhai decided to exchange mathematics for merchandise. He was desirous of seeing an intimate connection established between England and India, and particularly wished to provide a home for young Indian students in London. Mahatma Gandhi, when he went to London to study, carried a letter of introduction to Dada Bhai. Gandhiji said that Dada Bhai became a real Dada, a father figure to him. Firoz Shah Mehta, another great patriot, also acknowledged Dada Bhai's sage counsel and inspiration, which formed his character and elevated his ideals while he was studying law in England. The pursuit of commerce in England was not an end, but a means to an end, namely, work for the economic and political well-being of India. Then came 1857, the first Indian War of Independence. The upheaval of 1857 made him very pessimistic about the future, but the transfer of the administration from the East India Company to the Crown and Queen Victoria's memorable proclamation promising equality of treatment to her Indian subjects cheered him up. Never to accept a statement without verification, never to make a statement without being convinced of the truth of it, was the rule of his life. And if he did say anything which was not borne out by facts, even his bitterest critic refrained from questioning his credentials. The incident with the Maharaja of Baroda brings out the mettle of which Dada Bhai was made. Once Malhar Rao Gaikwad pressed him to do what Dada Bhai, as his Diwan, thought would cause more harm than good. He told the Maharaja, "My surname is Dori. You know, Your Highness, that you may burn a dory, a string, but you can never take the twist out of it. So it is with me. When once I form a decision, nothing will dislodge me from it." On July 26th, 1875, Dada Bhai was elected a member of the Municipal Corporation of Bombay for the first time, from the same district in which he was born 50 years before. He was elected to the Town Council, the executive committee of the corporation. As a member, he was entitled to an honorarium, but he refused it because he regarded civic service as a social obligation. His knowledge of finance and his skill in statistics were of great value to the corporation. His work elicited admiration not only from his colleagues, but even from the officers, who were baffled when his resignation of August 26, 1876, was placed before the corporation. A special vote of thanks was accorded to him. It was an exceptional honor, as there was no precedent for a vote of thanks to a retiring member. He was again elected to the corporation in 1883. As a mark of appreciation for his services, a marble statue adorns the corporation hall. A.O. Hume, a retired member of the Indian Civil Service, was a strong and active supporter of India's struggle for greater freedom. He floated the idea of a single central united organization. Thus, the Indian National Congress was born. Dada Bhai was one of the moving spirits and founders of it. The first session of the Congress was held in Bombay in 1885, under the presidency of W.C. Banerjee. After the inauguration, India and the Congress became inseparably linked in Dada Bhai's daily thoughts. He spoke about them as though they were synonymous terms. The second session of the Indian National Congress, held in Calcutta, elected Dada Bhai as the president. In his presidential address, he referred to the question of representation of Indians in the British Parliament. He demanded the expansion of legislative councils to include more Indians. In England, the battle for justice for Indians was going on. Unfortunately, only a handful of the members in the House of Commons were really progressive enough to realize that England's good came only through India's good. Of these, the most ardent, active, and friendly to Dada Bhai were William Wedderburn, Samuel Smith, and W.S. Kane. W.S. Kane visited India in 1888. He paid a glowing tribute to the Corporation of Bombay. I have no hesitation in saying that both the administration and public debate of the Bombay municipality are equal in quality to that of Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, or Glasgow. Dada Bhai took special care to see that such favorable impressions of British friends based on personal observations were widely circulated in England. In H.M. Hindman, the socialist, Dada Bhai found the most ardent student of Indian economics and a vehement critic of the British administration of India. He was one of the few men who took part in unpopular movements and stood for the oppressed against the strong. Dada Bhai realized that it was only the British Parliament which could bring about changes in the lives of Indians. There was not a single Indian MP in the House of Commons. Dada Bhai decided to stand for election. When questioned about his move, Dada Bhai said, "Not one single genuine Indian voice is there in Parliament to tell, at least, what the native view is on any question. This was most forcibly urged upon me by English gentlemen who are in Parliament themselves. They said they felt it to be a great defect in Parliament that it did not contain one single genuine representative of the people of India." He stood from the Holborn constituency as a Liberal candidate. It was a tough and gallant fight, but, as apprehended, it ended in Dada Bhai's defeat. Not deterred by it, Dada Bhai again stood for the elections, this time from Finsbury. Again there was a tough fight, but Lord Salisbury's remark, calling him "that black man," changed the scene. These two words simply kicked Dada Bhai into fame. Within 24 hours, Dada Bhai's name was on the lips of everyone throughout the United Kingdom. Dada Bhai won the elections and became the first Indian Member of Parliament. He reached the pinnacle of his fame. People from all over the world congratulated him. In India, the news was celebrated with great fanfare. The Indian National Congress again elected Dada Bhai as its president in Lahore. At a reception in his honor, he said, "I am a Hindu, a Mussulman, a Parsi, but above all, an Indian." He asked the people to work for the elimination of poverty and to be prepared for sacrifice. To bring to the notice of the world the misery of his hunger-stricken country and the evils of political subjugation, he published a book entitled Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. It was a compilation of his speeches and papers. There were two aspects to the book, the economic and the political. The book was widely read in India and in England. In 1905, Lord Curzon partitioned Bengal. The aim was to widen the gap between Hindus and Muslims. There was a spontaneous reaction against this act. Dada Bhai condemned the partition of Bengal as a bad blunder for England. He hoped it would be rectified. Bengal or Madras, India or South Africa, Dada Bhai kept in touch with all the problems Indians faced and tried to solve them. To escape from famine and plague and the persecution of their creditors, many Indians went to South Africa and found themselves leaping from the frying pan into the fire. They were deprived of their civic rights and privileges. The color bar practiced by whites was humiliating. The settlers used to seek Dada Bhai's advice and help, which he was ever ready to provide. He wholeheartedly supported the movement started by Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhiji used to write regularly to him about the movement. In one of his letters, written to Dada Bhai, Gandhiji said, "You will oblige me very greatly if you will kindly direct and guide me and make necessary suggestions which shall be received as from a father to his child." Thus, the relationship between them took the deepest root in South Africa. The time for the 22nd session of the Congress was drawing near. The party was divided into two, the moderates and the extremists. The extremists were represented by Lokmanya Tilak. An SOS was sent to Dada Bhai to accept the presidentship of the Calcutta session. He was loved and revered as the grand old man of India, but he had not yet ceased to be the ideal young man of India. He, as president, brought both the factions together. The keynote of Dada Bhai's address was Swaraj. He said, "Self-government is the only remedy for India's woes and wrongs. For this purpose, we must strengthen the Congress." Referring to the British in India, he said, "Will he not, as an Englishman, at once tell me, 'Faults or no faults, a Briton shall never be a slave'? And yet he coolly justifies and assumes the right divine of making other people slaves?" Dada Bhai further said, "It is futile to tell me that we must wait till all the people are ready. The British people did not so wait for their parliament." Dada Bhai, the grand old man, turned 90, but he was still young at heart and actively connected with the Swaraj movement. In September 1915, Mrs. Annie Besant formed the Home Rule League as an auxiliary to the Indian National Congress. Its aim was to educate the people and to support the demand of the Congress for self-government. Dada Bhai, on certain conditions, consented to be the president of the Home Rule League. This created a sensation. Many thought another organization on an all-India basis would destroy the Congress. Protests were made, but Dada Bhai did not yield to pressure. Although often deceived, the erstwhile professor of mathematics insisted till the last day of his life that every theory of suspicion should be demonstrated like a theorem in geometry before he would act on it. On the 30th of June, 1917, one of the greatest of great Indians of the day passed away peacefully.
बहादुरी धरो हाथ कायर हो बैठे कहाँ बहादुरी धरो हाथ, प्रजा हिंदुस्तान की दादा भाई नायक है, प्रजा हिंदुस्तान की दादा भाई नायक है। करोड़ 28 एक वीर, धन्य धन्य हिंद मात, करोड़ 28 एक वीर, धन्य धन्य हिंद मात। हिंद सूर उदय भयो शौर्य भाव सायक है, हिंद सूर उदय भयो शौर्य भाव सायक है। अर्पण करो देह को जंग अमर कीर्ति को, अर्पण करो देह को जंग अमर कीर्ति को। प्रयास साध्य हो दादा भाई भायक है, प्रयास साध्य हो दादा भाई भायक है। हिंद कोक पुत्र बहुत हिम्मत की है जरूर, हिंद कोक पुत्र बहुत हिम्मत की है जरूर। पूर्वज अनुयायी बनो यही लायक है, पूर्वज अनुयायी बनो यही लायक है। कायर हो बैठे कहाँ बहादुरी धरो हाथ, कायर हो बैठे कहाँ बहादुरी धरो हाथ। प्रजा हिंदुस्तान की दादा भाई नायक है, प्रजा हिंदुस्तान की दादा भाई नायक है।